Hello and welcome to Awake and Lippy episode 4. How are you doing? So I'm just going to hang on and just double check because I'm streaming to YouTube and to Facebook. So I'm just going to double check that I am connected. So just give me one moment. Should be fine, but I just like to check before we get going. Okay, it looks like I'm connected. Okay, just double check the YouTube. Yeah, okay, good. All right, so welcome back if you're a returning viewer to episode 4. And in case you don't know who I am and you're new to my page, I am Marie Fleming Grant and I'm founder of the Awake Revolution. And I really help people to drop the baggage, wake up their real self, and to revolutionize how they think, feel and create. And I created this weekly live talk show, Awake and Lippy, in response really to the current shit show that we are moving through. And I thought it would be a great kind of way to drop in every week, just once a week on a Wednesday, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. UK time here on this page, to really just start to anchor into some of what's going on, help us move through whatever is we're experiencing. And I know many of you have been really struggling at different points, and it would seem right now that each week there's some new stuff, right? Wherever you are in the world, there is something else, and then there's like another thing that comes in. So this is the purpose of this this show, is to be real, be lippy, to discuss various things going on. And I'm going to be bringing on a couple of guests today, as usual. It was a slightly different show last week, so we're back to the usual format, but I'm still going to share some channeled messages as well. So as you're watching, wherever you're watching, whether it's YouTube or Facebook, or if you're watching the replay, feel free to comment below. We'll get the conversation going. I can always come back and answer comments and questions. But if you are watching, if you can just give me a like or a heart or a hello or some comment, just so I know that I'm connecting, and then we'll get going, because I get very paranoid about connection on these things. But it's looking good. But just let me know that you can definitely hear me, because I know a few of you are here live. Okay, and while you're doing that, I will just let's begin with a channeled message, just to get things moving. And before I bring on my very first guest, and we're going to really have a good old chat. None of this is scripted, so we're going to just have a good chat, see where it goes, and see what we feel like exploring. So I'm just going to bring in the Arcturian message, as I've done on all the other shows. And what the Arcturians are, they very much wish to assist humanity, and they're here to uplift and help us through this massive ascension process that the entire planet is going through. So if we just tune in now, I will just channel a message for you as a collective. Okay, greetings, dear ones. We wish to communicate with you today to help release some of the stresses and tensions that many of you are carrying. And we know that wherever you are in the world, there has been a lot of changes and challenges coming up for you in all different parts of the world. And we know that many of you are experiencing some more of the challenging emotions currently. And you may find that you move through waves at a time through various challenges, but there are often some more heartbreaking narratives that you are now tuning into. And so we wish to help to alleviate that, if we can, in this moment, by reminding you of soul choice. So as you are witnessing, many souls are making all different decisions, many of which do not correspond to your own thoughts, beliefs, and choices. And so what is difficult in your current time is the division between you as communities, families, loved ones. And so when you watch those closest to you make those decisions that cause you to feel very worried and go into panic and fear, we wish to remind you that each soul is making their choice in alignment with their highest good. And we understand that that is a challenging concept, but it is a message that we will keep returning too, because it is when you have a higher perspective that it very much helps alleviate some of the suffering that many of you may be starting to experience as we move through these challenges. And so we will return to this topic, but for now we wish to just share this perspective with you so that it is something that you can sit with and reflect on, and it may be something that you choose to return to at a later date. But for now, we wish to remind you of the importance to really tune into your own well-being, into your own health, into anything that will help you raise your vibration, keep you connected, keep you grounded. Because when you move through chaos, it is the most important thing is to tune into your own needs. And so the more strengthened you can be from within, the more you can cope mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And so if there are any things that you know that you are not doing that would be of your benefit, we ask you and remind you and lovingly encourage you to start bringing these aspects into your life. And this is not about perfection. This is more about tuning into those things that give you strength, that strengthen you in some ways. For some of you, this will be bringing in more lightness. For some of you, this may be even physical movement. It could be dedicating some time to creativity, some play, dance, anything that allows you to get into the flow of your life and your life force. And whilst many of you are tuning into the lower vibrational programs and messages, and that is okay, you can continue to do that. But we also remind you of the importance to really start to switch off from some of those. The energies on the planet are very heavy right now as you're moving through. And so many of you, especially those of you who are sensitive, will be picking up much of this energy into your physical body. And so we share this with you as to remind you that this is a real process that you're moving through, and you are not imagining what you are feeling. And so to give yourself time and space to really process some of the more difficult emotions that you may be feeling, and at the same time bringing in those activities, as we mentioned, to really help strengthen you and connect you back into your core. Okay. And we just wish to share so much love with you through this time. And we encourage you to expand your minds and allow yourselves to receive some new perspectives, some new ways of thinking, and this will benefit you greatly and will help to raise your consciousness. And this is what the ascension process is. It's about raising your consciousness and helping you move through these times with as much ease as possible. And we send you much love. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, that's good advice. And there's messages I've been channeling some more in my private group. And it's kind of like we've been getting those messages quite a bit around, you know, even to the point of using your imagination and actually really starting to use this process, believe it or not, as a way to really fire off some of your creativity, which sounds a bit nuts, doesn't it, when we think about tapping into your creativity and doing some incredible things in the midst of what's happening. But actually, that's the very time when we can, as a collective, really start to create and birth new things into the world. So it kind of makes sense when they bring those messages in. But yeah, let me know how that resonates, and let me know what you're experiencing right now. So when you're watching the replay as well, let me know how you're feeling and some of the things that might be coming up for you. So, okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to bring on, and we're going to have a good old chit chat in a very unstructured way. And this is how I like to do it. So we are not planned, we've not planned any sort of specifics. We're just going to allow the conversation to really flow. And the intention is to really open up this space for you watching, to tap into what's going on for you, to hear some other perspectives, and we can just bounce some ideas around and share some views, some energies, whatever's coming up for us. And I think it's so beneficial to know as well that you're not alone, maybe in some of your thoughts and some of the things that are coming up for you. So let's get this info up. Okay, so today we are going to talk around tough times, current challenges for humanity, and tapping into the warrior spirit, which I love. And I'm going to bring on my first guest today. Is a great friend on Facebook. We connected on Facebook, and I was on his podcast twice. I think so was Michael. I forget how many times now. A few times now. Between us, one together, we came onto his podcast. It's Insuli, and I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. And I've just realised I don't know how to pronounce your name, even though we've been connecting and chatting. So let me know when you come on. So I'm going to bring you on, Ant. And Ant is he is the host of the Discerning Consciousness podcast, which you can check out on his YouTube channel. So it's the Discerning Consciousness podcast. But correct me if I'm wrong on how that is pronounced. But let's bring Ant on, and we're going to have a good old chit chat now about what's going on. So,
hello,
okay. hello. How
That's
are you?
That's a perfect pronunciation of my surname. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Because I just realised, you know, and you sort of say names in your head, and you're just like, my friend Ant on Facebook. Never said your surname.
Just also to add a bit of shameless PR here. In addition to my YouTube channel, Discerning Consciousness, I've also hosted audio. I've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years. So if people just check on a hosting site called Podomatic. So that's Podomatic, I think, yeah, and just put Discerning Consciousness, it'll bring up. So there's about 100 episodes on there. It's all free to download. So, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know I'm not great at PR. I'm not great at the whole promo thing. Is my audio okay?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, I can hear you really well. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Okay, brilliant. Oh, I'll check some of that out as well, because you've got a load of episodes.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been really interested in the world and consciousness and everything sort of way, like before that. So maybe you just want to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. A little bit about my story. I first got into around about 2005. It was the aftermath sort of the whole second Iraq war, and I'd always been very political. And then obviously we know that the weapons of mass destruction, they never materialized, and we had the whole debacle of the lead up to the war, and you know there was a lot of opposition, and so more and more I was looking for answers beyond the political realm. So from sort of around about late 2005, what really pushed me into kind of a different arena, if you like, was I stopped watching live broadcast TV, and I started doing a lot of research into 9/11, and I know 9/11 is an event for a lot of people that triggers their kind of, shall we say, their awakening or transition to a new understanding, because I know the word awakening can get abused. And then really, yeah, for the next 5 or 6 years, I went down a lot of sort of conspiracy type rabbit holes, alternative histories, like, looking into the banking system, pharmaceutical industry, what real health means, all gamut of many fascinating areas that we all kind of get into when we begin to look at the nature of truth and reality. And then a big event for me was around about 2010. I had a sort of breakdown with all of this material, because I didn't realize at the time, but I was extremely emotionally unbalanced whilst doing this research. So I was being there were a lot of triggers to do with trauma, unhealed childhood trauma, and that was driving quite a lot of my research. And it was only subsequently through various healing modalities that I realized, with a lot of the conspiracy material, it is important to look at the shadow, but it's just part of a development of gaining a deeper understanding of the world and, of course, ourselves. And what I realized was that shadow that I was looking outside there was really as much the shadow inside myself. And then I realized, through looking at the works of Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, and of course the likes of the brilliant Carl Jung, looking at this idea of individuation. So what I went on was a very archetypal type of journey. But for me, in summation, it very much was the conspiracy route that I went down. And just lastly, since my kind of breakdown with all of that around about 2011, I've kind of become more balanced. So I wouldn't say that, I don't look at conspiracy type material, because basically that is our reality now, isn't it? But when I look at it, I'm far more emotionally balanced. And also I can, when I look at it, it's a way of looking at it in a more reasoned way, because I know there's so much going on at the moment with regards to the things like the jib jab, and people are saying certain things, and it's about going, well, in some instances I don't actually know what's going on, and I know when you're coming from emotion, it's like, well, I know this is what's going on, and it's about being centered, isn't it, really? Because there's so much crazy stuff going on right now. Gosh, that was a long-winded little bit of polemic.
No, that's brilliant, because it's so, I think it's so timely what you just said, because what you described is this whole process of, you know, as we say, like going down the rabbit hole, right? Of suddenly you're in one reality. And I think let's speak about that for a moment, because it's so relevant to now. You're in one reality, living your life, getting on with life. And then when you start to research, and even that phrase is kind of being ruined now, isn't it? Oh, researching. No, like I genuinely mean that. When you start to open your mind and start to look up bits of information and start to explore, it can be very shocking. So I think let's just touch on that, because I think there'll be people tuning in who've gone through some of that, and you had yours obviously before. So how did you feel sort of last year when all of this came out? Did it
That's
hit
a
you?
great question. That's a great question. Brilliant question. So basically, I think I said this in a video that I did about you know, when it started, or the summer last year. And what I said is, it's almost like for those of us who've been doing all this different research, it's almost like we're prepped in a way, because we know that COVID is just the next step in these various kind of agendas. And so I feel that we're kind of rooted in a deeper understanding, and that means that we don't feel it so personally. Does that make sense? So I was quite because I know I say to a few people who I talk to about these amazing subjects, I think if COVID had happened during my kind of intense awakening time between 06 and 2010, when part of me was a little bit paranoid, okay, I have to accept that, I think I would have been shipped off to the funny farm. I mean, I literally, and I don't say this lightly, I would have been at vaccination centres stopping, you know, potentially, you know, putting signs up, stop this evil and all this kind of stuff. And I've come to the understanding that, like you were saying from your channeled message, part of it is what's going on is the soul's trajectory, and people on a higher level are choosing. That doesn't mean we just, you know, we don't take an interest in what's happening. We don't share messages to alert people as to what's happening. But what I've learned, I guess, is you have to detach. And biggest piece of wisdom that I came to was during 06 to 11, I thought it was my responsibility to change the world. I know this sounds very grandiose, but you know, so what I learned was all we can do is what's in our immediate world, and we can't actually change the world, because otherwise, like, I was destroying myself, literally destroying myself. So so basically, in summation, I feel that for me, I wasn't surprised what that transpired last March with the COVID. Initially, I think, like all of us, I was in a state of shock, you know, when Boris Johnson said you mustn't leave your house only for, you know, emergency purposes. So there was a shock that it was so extreme and in your face. But I do think that because of the previous work that I'd done, and these understandings are very hard to come by. They're not like someone said, oh, you know, read this book, and oh yeah, that's interesting. These are deeply immersed things that we go through, real shocks to the ego. So yeah, it has made it easier for me to cope with. Does that make any sense?
Totally makes sense, because that's the thing, isn't it? It's like this shock, this like ripple of shock, you know. And as you said, another, if this happened in another time for you, maybe a trip to the funny farm, right? You might have had to be carted off somewhere. And you know, I feel the same. Like if this had happened for me during my, what I call like a transformational like period, awakening transformation, when I got really ill and I was just housebound and just everything was going wrong, I think this would have just tipped me over the edge at the time.
Yeah,
so here. It's a really great thing just to kind of plug into that for a moment, for us to just acknowledge, this is why getting angry with people for not seeing it is just pointless. So it's okay. Like, and I've done it. I'm not saying I've got really fired up. I've had to really have a word with myself and come home and ranted to Michael, and he's ranted as well. We've gone through that. but it's like we've got to understand now. We've done enough of that. We've moved through it. But it's like when we start to, and this is what I love about looking at it from a higher perspective. When you understand that it's not even intelligence. It's a consciousness. You can only know what you know at the level that you are. You know, and I was even saying to Michael the other day, I said, if this was years ago, I might have been somebody, like if I was in my 20s, I probably would have just followed the news. That's where I was back then. I was just living my life and I was following the news, and I would have done what they told me to and probably just gone and had the you know what. So it's so difficult at the same time, isn't it? Because you know what you know, and then you've got to witness it. So I love that you've touched on that, because it's so important right now. And it's tough. It's just like we can all think we're going a bit mad anyway, right? You are awake.
It is very tough. Can I just add a point to what you said, Marie? Is some notes I did before it came on air was kind of like a message of encouragement was, let's not underestimate what we're going through here. I know we're not being lined up in front of pits and being shot in the back of the head, or being bombed, through nightly bombing raids, but the psychological warfare that we are facing right now and since last March through the mainstream media is the likes of which we haven't seen, funnily enough, since the war, and it affects us very deeply, and it is really challenging, and we shouldn't discount the impact that it's having on all of us. I mean, like today, I was driving home from work, and I was filling up with this emotion of anger, regret, and guilt, just to pick up on that you were talking about difficult emotions from your channeled message, I should say. It was just coming over me. I just wanted to come home and cry, and I didn't, because I was preparing for this recording, but I may well do later. And I don't mean to be cheesy, but it's really difficult. En route to work, I pass a vaccination centre, and I know now that they're planning to jab the kids, and it's that feeling of sadness that so many people, and they're not stupid and they're not foolish, but it is like a real spectre of evil and darkness, and to feel that in you, irrespective of what research we may have done or your people watching, the audience, it on a human level, it's awful to and so I'm not explaining myself but it is. That's the reason for the extreme psychological warfare and all the propaganda techniques that they're using, is to coerce people to cave and go, sod it, okay, I'm just gonna go and get the jib jab out of convenience. And for all of us who are withstanding, that is the warrior energy, that is the warrior spirit, and that is the warrior consciousness. I just wanted to add that.
Definitely. So much everything that you said, absolutely. And just to speak of those emotions, it came up in our house yesterday. I think it's this thing around the children. We're now starting to see it, aren't we? And I think we already knew, we were going to guess maybe last year, even this year, that it was going to come our way. I think a lot of us were still hoping that it just somehow wouldn't. I know I was. There was a bit of me going, we'll probably deal with it before we get to that. And it's starting to come in. And I think this is what a lot of people, and you probably tapped it. Was this yesterday, did you say, or today?
It was today. I still can feel the anxiety, and it's just,
it's heavy. And I think what you've done,
very heavy.
You pick up things, I think, your energies as well, and there's so much of it in the frequency, and it hit us yesterday. And I'm sure Michael is coming on after, he won't mind me sharing that he really felt, he got very, he really felt it. He was so sad about it last night, and he wasn't even angry or fired. He was sad.
No.
He was so sad.
That's exactly it, the sadness.
About I think it was in Australia, around getting 24,000 children or something, and he really, it was kind of unusual for him, not that because he's emotional too, but he really felt this. So I'm not surprised that there's something going on at the moment and it's coming up. And I think that this is probably a conversation we're going to have again on this show around, and we've touched on it even last week, around the children and looking at it from a higher perspective. But like you said, it is a very difficult thing for humanity, and there are going to be really big, deep, dark feelings, right, that come up, and it's going to trigger us from whatever we've got going on within us. you know.
Absolutely.
And let's just acknowledge that for anyone that's watching, and then because sometimes we're, especially if you're aware of it, we've got this pressure. A lot of people are, I see it on Facebook, people are putting this immense amount of pressure on themselves to be strong and be optimistic and rise up. But actually, part of being the warrior is to know when you need to restore. And actually, you know, how we move through this is through the feeling of it, which is very uncomfortable. It's not, this isn't easy, you know.
It's
so I love that you shared that.
It's I would describe it as it's a very primal sense of guilt. I mean, I don't have children.
Yeah.
Obviously I have nieces and nephews, but I mean they're all grown up now. It's that's that feeling of protecting the children that we all have as human beings. And I saw something on Facebook today. I can't vouch for the authenticity of it, but it said that there was a picture of children in Ireland who had collapsed after having the jib jab, and it's horrific. It's horrific.
Yeah, it is. And I think one of the higher perspectives, and this is what I've been getting through, because I was asking a few questions last week around some of the children's stuff and like making sense of this, right? And like, how do we move through, how the hell do we move through this? Because I mean, we know we can't stop certain aspects. A part of this is we're going to have to sort of observe and witness this thing rolling out, and we're going to have to just kind of live with what's happening, right? And everybody's choices. And I was asking about it, and what the higher perspective message on this was actually, it wasn't, you know, contrary to a lot of spiritual teachings on down here, it wasn't be optimistic and get through it with a positive attitude. It really wasn't. It was like they were, and what I love, and this is what I feel as well, it's like, let's look at it, we can look at it with two perspectives, and this is what helps me anyway, so I just want to share in case it helps anyone. It's sort of putting one foot into the human and one foot into the higher perspective. So the human bit is the bit of us that sees these things just as you've explained today. It's like it's feeling it, it's seeing it, it doesn't like it, it's finding it very difficult. You might have rage, anger, guilt, sadness, despair, anxiety, depression, or all of that, whatever comes up, and allowing yourself to feel that and not trying to cheer yourself up and pretend it's not happening.
No.
But you don't want to get swallowed by it. So you've just got to really just allow the movement of that. But at the same time, the other kind of foot in the higher perspective is, and I kind of call it the giraffe because I love giraffes, and I always feel like I'm the giraffe that's like kind of doing everything, right? So it's like, I don't want to be on the ground. I'm like, okay, I get the feeling. I'm the strong, and I'm seeing everything. And when you actually kind of look up and go, oh, okay, I can see what's happening. The Earth is ascending. All the crap is coming up. All these old programs that have been on our planet all this time are making themselves known. And what's happening is they're getting more conscious. We're moving through them, and this is horrible. We're seeing it. But we're going to transmute the whole thing. And eventually humanity will move. And as a result of what's happened, there'll be a higher consciousness. And that's when we talk about the new Earth and all the wonderful things, right? Blah, blah, blah. But when we're down here and we're feeling it, you're not really kind of tapping into like the new Earth and abundance and the amazing systems and technologies. So I kind of invite anyone, maybe feel your feelings, go through that, but kind of have one foot in each. And that's what I find. I find if I do both, I'm not dismissing and ignoring my feelings, my human feelings, but I'm still tuned into something that makes sense. We've got to make it make sense somehow, right? Very difficult otherwise.
Yeah, I think I like the word amplification because it kind of applies in two ways. So there's an amplification because, as I said in my spiel earlier, COVID is just the next part of this attempt to enslave humanity or keep consciousness at a very low vibration. Because unlike some people in the alternative, I don't think this is a mass die-off event, because on one level, the entities that work through the political class, and the controlling powers, they need us as a fuel source. So think of the Matrix analogy.
Yeah.
But it's an amplification of all these agendas that have been going for decades. I'll just give one example. Treating cancer with radiotherapy and chemotherapy, which as much as it may well shrink the growth, how many thousands of people have died whilst being given chemotherapy and radiotherapy? So now with the jib jab, it's just the next level. But the thing is, like you're saying, Marie, it's becoming more apparent to everyone, hopefully. That's the amplification point. But like you were saying, we need it highlighted to everyone, because in order for consciousness to evolve, we have to deal with all the darkness, all the shadow. And I don't mean that in a flippant way, but everything is basically going to come to light.
Yeah.
So, for example, another example, right now, a lot of military vets in the United States and military veterans, I think they're called in the UK, good men and women, are looking at the situation in Afghanistan and thinking, well, I thought we went out there to fight the ultimate evil, you know, Al Qaeda and the Taliban. Hold on, they're back in power now, the Taliban. So maybe that's going to make them question their own view about the truth about politics. So, you know, things are moving.
Yeah.
Things are moving. But I think a lot of us in the alternative media, me included, we're looking for that big event or the big disclosure or the big arrests, when things are moving and shifting, as I say, with the Afghan situation all the time. That is affecting people on a personal level, on their consciousness.
So true. And that's an important one, isn't it? Because there was a lot of talk for a while, wasn't there, of like, this thing's going to happen then, and then on this date it's going to happen. And actually, we're seeing, because I think it's like every area, it's a lot of people won't realize until it's certain areas that come in and really impact them. So as you just said, like the military, the veterans, it's going to get them in that way, right? It's going to kind of get the attention of people who literally have children who they're getting emails from school, and then they're going to go, oh right, this is a thing I have to deal with. And maybe until then they just kind of carried on with their lives, right?
Exactly.
And we often do. We've got this kind of consciousness at the moment, and maybe that will shift, you know, soon, but it's more like it often people don't care unless it actually impacts them.
Absolutely.
What we're learning now is like what happens in America actually influences what happens in China, what happens in every area of the world. We are, you know, when we're going to start seeing things with our productions and deliveries and little interruptions deliberately done. It's like we're going to start learning the connectedness, right, of all of us. So I agree with what you say. It's like it is moving. So this is a good thing to kind of tap into. There is definitely movement, and that's important. We're not just in this kind of shit show that we're stuck, because I don't see it that way.
No,
I really don't.
I agree with that. And it is it's important, just back to about words of encouragement from my good self, to be kind to yourself and recognize the limits of what you can do within your own world. Because I know a lot of people are printing off flyers and they're campaigning, and that's great. And I was in that mode between 2006 and 2010, 2011. I took part in the campaign to stop the fluoridation of the water supply locally here in Southampton, and I was, you know, putting posters on, advertising hoardings and bus stops, and I was really driven. I went to meetings and all the rest of it. But I don't feel driven so much in the same way, but that doesn't mean I'm like copping out. But plenty of other people are taking up the mantle. So I believe it's whatever you're drawn to do. So if you're perhaps a bit like me and you don't feel driven towards campaigning and all the rest of it, don't feel guilty as bringing up this idea of guilt, because whatever you're drawn to do, you're drawn to do. That makes sense.
Totally, and that's a good one, because I've seen Facebook posts of people kind of calling other people out, right, saying, if you're not speaking up about this issue, you're not awake, right? That's a real typical, like, you're not talking about this, you're not talking about the children. But what I think is we can't all be talking about all of it all the time, and you're going to find that some people lead with the children issues, and some people are leading with the jabby stuff, and some people are leading on, you know, the other aspects, the legal stuff or the medical whatever, or they're just developing awareness. So we're all here to do whatever. I love that you just brought that up. It's like whatever you're called to do, there is no one way, and thank God, because we need people to be doing all different things. And some people, maybe you're called to really just focus on your own life. And I want to just point this out, because even focusing on your own life is incredibly powerful. The ripple effects, because also if you could be someone that's out there protesting and all of that stuff, making noise out there. But if in your own life, then you're going around with rage and anger and you haven't dealt with your own energy, that's there's still work to do. So I love that you mentioned that, because it's okay, because people do feel guilty, don't they? I think they do. I'm not doing enough, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's no one way. There's no rule book. We've never been here. We've never been here.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that we're going through, and it's going to be a long period of time. I keep having to remind myself, and this is, it's not going to be next week. I mean, we are going through a tumultuous period, but it's going to be several years. I know people are saying up until 2025, then we reach that point and things might shift, but you know, it might not be in our lifetimes that we see this huge shift in consciousness that we're hoping and expecting at some point. It might be. So we kind of, you have to live with that disappointment as well, because like I said earlier, we all want it tomorrow. Come on, you know, we want it to happen.
But this is where your individual consciousness comes in, because there's two levels, isn't there? There's the collective one, and as you said, like that, who knows how long that's going to take? That depends on the collective, right? And we're kind of slow on this planet. We take quite a while to do things. So there's a collective thing, and some of that we'll see in our lifetime. But this is going to be going on because it's a never-ending evolution. So we can't wait for consciousness to rise enough so that we're all on new earth, in heaven on earth. And I'm fully sure that we're going to get there, but probably not anytime soon, right?
No,
heaven on earth quite yet. However, I think that you can still create your own realities within that. So you could have, if you really tune into your own consciousness and your own life, and you really get all your stuff sorted in that way, in your own personal journey, you could create such an amazing experience for yourself here, and you're not having to wait then for something outside of you, because that's where a lot of people, I think, that they're looking outside. And yes, there is still, we're going to do that, but we need to also look inside and create, because every day we're creating our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, our actions, and people are getting depleted. I see it now. There's like a burnout happening on social media. People have to like totally come away from it for like a month or something, because they're just so exhausted from sharing. And this is okay if this is you, you know, or anyone, but it's like, if you're being kind of steered into, well, what do you want to create for yourself, because you're very significant.
Yeah, it's this, I've heard it called, we get stuck in the revealing stage. So it's about revealing all the deceptions, and right now there's so many deceptions that are going on. I mean, you know me well enough to know that I'm very much driven by doing research and information. So I constantly have to pull myself away from that, because there gets a point where it gets self-defeating. I just wanted to add on this idea of empowerment, encouragement. It can be small little things, because we know with disruptions to the supply lines, we're already experiencing food shortages in supermarkets. And I don't want to say that from a fear aspect, like you must go out. Like certain people saying you must go out and get supplies. Okay, I understand that, but think of it in terms of, well, so I can help my neighbors if there are shortages, rather than I'm just going to have my collection of food and sod my neighbors. But in relationship to that, the point I wanted to make was, maybe it could just be that you start going to your local farmers market, and then a few people go, oh, I'm not going to Tesco's or Sainsbury's anymore. Oh, you not? And oh yeah, I'm checking out local farmers markets. Small little things like that can have a big effect.
Definitely.
Because eventually we're all going to be, I'm not sure that the corporations like the supermarkets are ever going to become ethical. So we're kind of all going to be forced in that direction.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. We were talking about this yesterday, because we were talking about like we're wanting to start to grow things. We really got this like, it's like kind of coming in slowly. And I was saying, yeah, we're all going to kind of be forced to do it, aren't we? And I had to have like a whole mindset shift, because I have like, I'll just admit, I'm so ignorant on growing anything, like never even have to think about it, right? We've got really like completely disconnected from our food source, right? And I'm looking forward to that changing. But I love that you said that, because it's that aspect, isn't it, of what you're doing. It's the energy, like you know, yeah, sure, you know, get your supplies in, whatever you feel, you know, and you don't have to do it in scarcity. You don't even have to do it at all. But it's just, if you're doing anything, doing it from a place of like the flip side of, oh, this is going to feel good, this is abundant, I can help people with this, right? Rather than, oh my God, I'm in fear and I'm going to die energy, which a lot of us have. But yeah, it's such a food stuff is interesting because, yeah, as you said,
Mm.
that the supermarkets aren't going to turn ethical anytime soon, right? They're
I
not.
wouldn't think so.
I would say not.
Mm,
They're probably getting worse anyway, aren't they? Right now,
mm,
with
mm,
the God knows where it's going to go. So yeah, it's not trying to do it all.
mm. I
all
mean,
at
I learnt the hard way in terms of food supplies. So back in 2008, when we had the midst of the banking crisis, I think
once.
it was after Lehman Brothers went tits up in the United States. I got all these food supplies in, and thinking that, yes, the evil system finally is going to collapse. Record daily drops on the Dow and the FTSE. Yes, finally, the
Yeah.
bankers are going to be vanquished. No, what happened? That
Mm.
didn't materialize, and I had to throw out all of this food. But then at the time, I was doing it from a place of being unbalanced,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it's like, oh, maybe that was my prepping for now.
Yeah. It sounds like it. It does, because it's
Yeah.
like you walk the path already.
Mm,
You've experienced this, and I really believe that when you do that, it's because you're here to just kind of light the way for other people.
yeah.
What I love about you in your podcast, it's like you're just lighting the way, and you're just opening up the place for people to move through, because often
Mm,
it's the first time they're doing it.
mm.
So because you've walked the path before, and now you're kind of like, you're showing other people. What do you think at the moment? What's helping you like tap into the warrior spirit at certain points? Obviously not 24/7, but what's helping you get through right now?
What's helping? Well, I think, yeah, like you were just saying, to realize, like, sometimes I just write down the small impact that I might be having on people, and also to realize that it's really important not to fall into the polarity of hating on those that have taken the
Mm,
jib jab, or hating on those, your family members. In my case, that's all of them, perhaps, like a lot of us we know
yeah.
have fallen for the deception, if you like, and to sit in that, almost like to forgive them, and to go, look, I still love them, and I'm not gonna disown them, and if they disown me or hate on me, then I need to accept that. So there's so many lessons
Mm,
in here, and to do that is part of the warrior. Sometimes to yield, but not passively. You still have boundaries. Like
mm,
recently, my brother, when I visited, his grandchild, he was encouraging me to get a test, and I said, well, no, I'm not going to get a test. And my
mm,
nephew was actually fine. So that was a boundary. I didn't do it in an aggressive
yeah.
way, because otherwise we're kind of like, we're sort of still pushing the agenda
Yeah.
forward, if we don't say, well, no, actually, in this moment, I'm going to put boundaries. Are always difficult. Well, you know that from your own work, and I know
Yeah.
from my own
Yeah.
life
They
journey.
are. And this is
but
what's
but
going on, isn't it?
sometimes, yeah, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to, do you know what I mean? And I think, coming into the autumn, when we come into flu season, I mean,
Mm,
the authorities are already telling us we're going to have a really bad flu season.
yeah.
I'm afraid some family members might even say to us, look, I don't want to see you. And we have to accept that, and not feel anger and resentment. And that's going to be a challenge. I'm
Yeah.
not, hopefully I explained myself there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is one to come back to. Maybe you can come on again if you want, and we can chat.
Oh,
But
I'd love to. It's nice to be
yeah,
a guest rather than
yeah,
invite
that
people
you're
on.
doing it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that, because I think that would be I'll note that down as a topic, because that's going to be something I think like
It's going
later
to be
this year.
huge. It's going to be big.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. I know my brother, because he's bought into this big style, that it wouldn't surprise me. And that's going to bring a lot of childhood trauma up for me, as it will
Yeah.
for anyone,
Yeah.
for all of us. And it's going to be really, really challenging, because I was just thinking, driving home, actually, and this is another thing I just wanted to go on. Sorry, I'm dominating this
No, no,
conversation.
definitely. I love it.
In the flesh, I know literally a handful of people that I could talk to about this, who know what's going on. Okay.
Yeah.
Less than half a dozen, less than 5, actually.
Yeah.
And that is really difficult in itself, because more and more I found recently, you probably haven't seen me much on Facebook. It's not just because I'm not working, that I need to connect in person. As great as the online stuff is, and this is brilliant, I really
Yeah.
love doing this, we need to do it in person to support one another. You know, it's a bit like in the science fiction films, like in They Live, where they've got the guerrilla underground movement and they all meet. We need to do that.
Yeah, true.
We need to do that. Why are they stopping us doing that?
Yeah.
You know, why is New Zealand going into a new crazy lockdown because of one case? Because they don't want us collaborating. I don't mean to bring the system down, but just to chat and just share our pain. That sounds a bit cheesy, but that's what we need to do.
It's so relevant, isn't it? And I love what you said about the boundaries, right? Because I think that, and we can come back to that conversation, I think, definitely in some of the later.
Yeah, make a note. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. But just for now, I think to kind of, again, tapping into this warrior spirit is part of preparation. That's a good one, actually, and inviting people now to just think in advance, not to preempt everything, but just like the experience you had with your brother. It's like you had a boundary already and you knew that you weren't going to take a certain action, like you weren't going to get a test, you weren't going to do this. So if you know in advance that's what you're going to do, you can calmly just state it to whoever you need to, and then you don't have to get reactive, because that's the thing that's driving people
exactly
apart, and that's what they want. They want us to fall out with all our family and friends. So that's a good one. So just have boundaries and just
you
think about it. Yeah,
you nailed it, because historically I've come from childhood kind of annoyance that how dare they, you know, and I had to sit in that and go, no, I've asked my nephew, he's happy about the fact I don't need to be tested, so it's always his wishes, his wife and the new baby. I think that's what we always have to do, check in with ourselves, because you know, if it's coming from like an emotional you know, but that's difficult, because I'm sure I'll do that plenty of times as well. There's no right or wrong here. We're all learning as we go.
Exactly, and it is, and I'll do the same. We'll have conversations like this, and I'm still going to have my days where I get triggered and get really ranty and really, really upset, and then I calm down, and then I have a different perspective. But it's like we've never been here before. So just go easy on yourselves. Yeah, that's what we'd say, right? Just everybody just be gentle with themselves and just move through it, kind of maybe a bit more consciously, a bit more mindfully. So just the aim, I suppose, is just to be a little bit less reactive and really just start thinking about it a little bit. Easier said than done.
I don't know if we've got time to bring up one more point.
Go for it.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Something else that might be helpful for yourself and your audience is, and I'm not labeling here, forgive me folks, but it's challenging to be around people when you know they've been deceived, okay? Now, I'm not saying their decision to take the you-know-what is right or wrong, but there's a very heavy energy, because billions of people around the planet, and let's not mince our words, have fallen for a massive hoax, a massive psychological operation. And that in itself creates a certain type of energy of, well, let's call it what it is, evil, right? Lies, deception, manipulation. And for those of us who have got some sort of handle, we don't necessarily know 100% what's going on. That's a very heavy energy to be around. And I'm not saying don't be around friends and family, you know, who are buying into illusion, but just to be, again, kind to ourselves. If you work in an office or you meet up with people and they're all following the mainstream narrative, you will feel drained. You will feel overwhelmed, because that is an extremely dense thing that we've never experienced probably since wartime, the Second World War.
So true. We talk about this. Me and Michael were talking about it as well. Just walking down the street, you can feel just the frequency sometimes. And when you're watching people comply, it is an energy, you know. And it's not about the personality or the individual person or anything, but it's an energy of they're tapping into this, and you can see it for what it is. So that's a very difficult place to be when you're kind of more aware and you can see it. So yeah, I think that's a great thing to just acknowledge, you know? And just, what's the remedy? Like, give yourself some space when you know, whenever you come out, really give yourself some, like, I just think like baths are good, just anything to kind of ground yourself and come back into your own energy, and realize that you've tapped into some of that heavier frequency, and adjust yourself however you need to.
And that will, I don't mean to be a harbinger of doom, I think that's the word, harbinger of doom, that is going to intensify as we come into flu season, and they're going to blame them all being COVID. And you know, as we know, the hardest thing for any of us to admit is that we've been lied to, and people will literally go to the lengths of killing, or saying our friends and family are going to kill us, but you know, they'll do anything not to accept the lie. You know, to you know, yeah, it's sorry, I'm waffling here, but that's why yeah, I don't ever see a mass awakening as such amongst the general population, because it's as we all know, as I explained at the beginning, and you touched on your own interesting journey, it's an individual process, and that just adds, but that does add to the frustration, because we just wish we had the magic wand. Ding.
There's a process. It's going to take one day at a time. I don't think it's going to change every week, every month. So these are conversations we can come back to. And yes, and we'll definitely come back and we'll talk more about that when it starts to show it, you know, when it comes up. Let's
because we're going to need to support, you know, everyone's going to need to support one another, because it's going to be, and I'm not saying, oh, come the autumn, you know, people are going to start dying in the streets, all that. I'm just saying, we know that the authorities, the least they're going to do is label all flu deaths as COVID. So we know from their past form, shall we say. So
and
it's going to get pretty intense.
It will make people dig harder, because a lot of people are going, oh, when we maybe see that through the autumn, winter months, that will wake people up. But actually, in reality, it'll probably make them dig harder into their groups. So it's actually not what a lot of people might expect. So again, it's another thing to navigate, but one thing at a time. But yeah, I hope that I think we just opened up a few issues there for people to just know they're not alone. Right, these are things that many of us are going through, you know, as you shared your journey as well from a few years ago. This is not easy, and it's okay. And just tapping into that strength where you can. And we're going to talk about that now. I'm going to bring Michael on. I'm going to
fantastic.
get some of his stuff as well. But yeah, so thank you so much.
No, it's great to be a guest on your show. Thank you so much. You're
welcome, and definitely come back and explore that. And just repeat your podcast, the name of your podcast.
It's just called Discerning Consciousness.
I've
got a YouTube channel, and also I've got an audio podcast. And if you just put Podomatic, so it's Podomatic, that's just where it's hosted. So if you do Podomatic Discerning Consciousness, it will bring it up. So thank you so much again for inviting me.
Very welcome. Right, well, take care. Lots of love.
Thank you. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.
See you then.
Bye.
Okay. Good. All right. So so I know we explored some of those more difficult, some of the more challenging things, right, that we're moving through. But I hope that's just allowed you just to know, like I said, you're not alone, and there are different ways to just move through it. And it's tough though. And I think this is the purpose of today, just acknowledging that it's a tough time. We are moving through things on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, right? So it's constant at the moment. So on that note, I shall bring in my second guest. My husband, MP Grant. He's back again, and we'll have another little chit chat. So I'll just move over, and we'll just kind of, what we're going to do is just talk about continuing this and just kind of tapping into things that might help, how to kind of tap into that strength, and how the hell to even navigate some of this stuff. So we're just going to kind of extend on what we've already touched on. So come on in. I'll just move you over here, okay? And then I'm going to come over here. I might have to adjust.
Steady on.
Welcome. I'll just move in. Is that Wedding Bear? Yes, Wedding Bear. Yeah. This is Wedding Bear. Everybody.
You don't need this phone.
No, just put it over there.
Throw it away.
Just chuck it over there.
With pleasure.
Okay, so welcome.
Hello, guys.
Yes. So how are you doing? How are you feeling?
Can't complain. Who would listen?
Who would listen? You feeling all right?
Besides you, I'm okay. Not totally 100% today, but no dramas, no worries, no complaints.
So we'll just do like a little 20-minute chit chat now, and just kind of again unplanned, or just explore. So I don't know if you think you caught some of that, didn't you?
Yeah, just that last bit.
Yeah, so we were just talking about.
It's good to hear.
It was so good. Yeah, and he was talking about he was sharing his journey, like when his kind of awakened and he woke up to kind of all this, the reality. Okay.
We need to get stools or something.
I know.
Excuse me.
Oh, okay.
All right. Jeez.
A studio.
My hips are too. I've lost about 55 pounds, but my hips are still
It's not the most spacious part for you, is it? Okay, you all right?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, so Ant was sharing about some of his journey, like when he woke up a few years ago, and he had this, it really hit him hard. He was saying if he felt all this now the way he was back then, he would have maybe like had to have been carted off somewhere, like for some mental health.
I've had a few times like that myself in my own life. Surprised they didn't.
So we were just talking about that and just like how difficult it is. So I wonder, we're going to just chat. What do you want to share on that? Because warrior spirit, that's up your street.
You know, that concept is has changed for me. It's not to say that I don't have that skill set, knowledge, and so on yet, but it's taken on a whole other meaning now. It's way more advanced. You know, certain things in my life have maybe helped, like seminary and Tai Chi and various things like that, certain study and so on. But being a warrior today is, in my mind, is totally different. You know, it's not like when I was a bouncer or you know, soldier or any of that stuff.
How would you describe it now then?
A master of one's inner truths, innermost truths, a brutal honesty with oneself and his or her place in the universe, which in some ways is very, very tiny, and in some ways is magnificent, and to be able to accept the two together as one.
Easy then.
Oh yeah, no problem. No
Simple.
problem.
But that's very fitting, isn't it, for what's going on right now?
I think so. I think it was as if you know, we were heading toward this for a while, for some years actually. I think we've had a few near misses with a sort of super consciousness, a world consciousness. I think that, I mean, Jasara and Nasara and all that was supposed to have been implemented, for example, just to get a baseline or a cornerstone of all of this, where we wouldn't have been perhaps, you know, as greedy and as almost merciless. Maybe we wouldn't have had those TV shows where everyone was competing against the other, and these reality shows where people were voting other people out, for example. It became a very clever, devious, nefarious mindset, which was not only programmed into the people, but the people liked it. They you know, followed it like whatever.
It's very clever, isn't it? It's very
I was upset
I
was upset when I was a boy, and when I was a teenager even. And I mean, outside the door, people were getting murdered or blown up and harassed and beaten up and so on. But yet here am I inside the door most of the time, watching these things on the television, becoming very, very upset at the innate nature, almost like a cultivation of the people of the nations, that this is acceptable. You know, voting people out, going behind their backs. It was a programming of divide and conquer, and so-called win. What are you winning? What were those people winning? Goodness sake.
It's such the divide and conquer. I never even thought about that actually. In terms
I used to get very upset, and I'd seen death from a very, very young age. I'd seen, I mean, this is. There'll be a couple of million murdered here in the next 3 to 6 months. But it'll be passive. It'll be people who are not feeling too well. They may fall, collapse. There's nothing violent per se. I watched the violent stuff and the blood and guts and sinews and hair and everything on the roads afterwards. And I saw all of that and heard the bangs which did it.
This is quiet,
this is a different. This is
different.
like a a silent tsunami where people just keel over and they don't put up too much of a fight because they didn't do that in the first place to get the job. But anyway, that's another thing.
But this is a lot of it. A lot of what's happening to us is so quiet. This is the frustration. Because remember I was saying about, you just reminded me there about TV programs like Netflix. I got, you know, as we said before,
Obama's
I read that. Yeah.
Asshole.
I was looking at Netflix. This is like last month, right, just before we cancelled everything. And I was looking at the romance. Remember I told you? I was looking at the romance.
What romance?
Yeah, like romance section on Netflix. And I scrolled through and I was like, what the hell is this shit? It isn't even like I'd expected like The Notebook, you know, or some kind of like romance that I grew up thinking was romance. And it had all this like trashy crap.
It's like Lucky Kitty's Lucky
Comedy
Bag
crap.
bullshit.
It was
it's like a Lucky Bag romance, you know.
It wasn't
they had
even
no
that.
clue what love was. Most of the, you know, most of the people out there, sorry to say, but the reason they're splitting up left, right, and center, or having affairs finally, and then shedding and transmitting their disease. I mean, it's a disaster out there. Is they haven't got a clue. How can anyone have a romance, a true romance, if they don't spend inordinate amounts of time together, or even just side by side, or you know, one downstairs, one upstairs, instead of going off with their mates and doing that? Why don't they really truly, I mean, be challenged by the other person, and be very careful what they believe is love. I'm talking about sex and all that, right?
This is what I'm trying to say.
To until they actually really truly know what love is, abstain from it. I don't care if it's weeks or months or even years. Abstain until you know what the hell you're talking about, what you're really feeling, what you've really got on board. But people out there, they don't know any of that. They don't know what it's like to genuinely think, even if they're angry with the other person, how to love them more than even themselves. Do they? I could go into 20, 30 different things, right?
Let me say what I was saying about the romance. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Netflix. Yeah, no, I was just saying off the back of what you were saying, that I was scrolling through and it was all this shit, right, on there. And it dawned on me that they have been, the same programs that we just talked about before, they've been like eroding our sense of what it is for all the things you just said, and it's working because of everything you just said. But it's like if you're not careful and you're not watching and you're not aware, these things will be like silently coming in and messing with your thoughts and your like. I know what romance is and I know what it isn't. So I got really angry and I was like, if I was a young kid growing up with this now, I'd have some warped view, right? Really pissed me off. So
it's really sad.
It is sad. So I just kind of want to just bring that into the programming right now, right? Of like, this is one of the challenges for humanity is the fact that it's so quiet and it's so sneaky. And as you just said about the warrior spirit is very much now about going within and starting to really connect, right? It's a very different energy.
And ironically, that connection is a love-based connection. I don't see too much difference between real, true love and a spiritual connection, although I'm very wary of this term spiritual, right, as you know. Because I see true spiritual connection. I mean true, not, I go to church every Sunday and I give a tenner to charity, and piss off. You ignored me after we left the church. You've got no more sense of spiritualism. But for me, spiritualism is if you can take a super trooper, commando, special force guy, you take or an Olympic champion, whatever, or a super trained, disciplined person. Now multiply that by 200, and that's you're only at junior school, kindergarten as regards spiritualism. I think people, it's going to take all their family to be wiped out or something. It's going to take something completely shocking for them to even recognize the knock on the door to that world of spiritualism. Sorry, if they watch TV, I'm 99.9999% certain they will have no idea what spiritualism is. I don't believe it. What, EastEnders and,
no, but you're saying,
what?
No, there's a
Seriously?
difference. There's a difference between watching TV and it's all you do is you're glued to your TV for
Yeah,
7
but
hours a
it's
day.
one thing after another. It's, what is it now, 7 minutes of commercials in between instead of 2 that used to be. I don't know. We threw the damn thing
I know.
out.
But let's acknowledge that even when we had the TV, we weren't those
crap.
Yeah, I know, but we weren't, just because we had a TV and we watched some of it, we still, I haven't for years, even before I met you, I was not watching a lot of it. So there are we'll just touch on that. Some people who have the TV, they're not just completely, they're just watching a couple of shows that they like.
Ask anyone who's got rid of their TV how they feel about having done that.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Right. Now there's a reason for that.
There's a spectrum, I think.
Well, unless they have an IQ of about 210 or off the charts, which my mother had apparently, but she felt that common sense. She had like 200 and whatever it was, but unless, she said that street sense, common sense, she said they are way, way more important. But what I'm saying is, unless people are super intelligent, super switched on, maybe then they can watch TV and somehow segregate the programming, the PSYOPs programming and all the crap that's inbuilt or enmeshed within all this stuff. I mean, for example, we watched, whilst the European Union issue was unfolding, we watched a program, what was it?
No,
Kentucky Fried Chicken?
We had an ad. It was a KFC ad.
Right. And in the bottom right corner was the blue flag, and
it was worse. No, that was one
flashing.
This one, and I got mad. Do you remember? Because we were watching, it was around all the Brexit stuff, and we're not talking about that now. But it was the issue at the time. Yes, it's not for now. Yeah, it was the issue at the time, and we were watching an ad, and it was just bloody KFC, right? Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then all of a sudden, I was just watching it, and it went
fried
like that.
rats.
It was like, and it flashed right in the, and I was like, you fucking assholes.
You did get upset.
I got so mad. I was like,
it's programming, right?
I know what they're doing.
So KFC, the CEO has accepted this bullshit programming, probably from the intelligence services. They're all involved. PSYOPs, think tanks, whatever. They've engineered this and said, we want you to be on board, which really makes me wonder about KFC anyway, aside from what I already felt. But never again would we ever touch KFC, never again. And it was touch and go once, maybe every 6 months, 9 months anyway. But never again. Not with that kind of crap.
No. I got so mad.
Anyway, that's one of the reasons we got rid of the TV.
And we had enough, didn't we?
Yeah, we had enough. So but there are people out there, we're talking about consciousness. They're still watching the effing TV. They don't realize what's being done to them. You watch the program EastEnders, and I knew 3 guys that were actors in this damn thing. 2 of them in the SAS reserves, funnily enough, and they're on EastEnders, but I couldn't believe that you were telling me that there was it your mum was watching? There was programming about vaccines and stuff?
I saw a clip, because it came up on Facebook, and there was a little scene, and I thought, let me see what the arseholes are saying now. And it was so like subtle. So there was like somebody in the mini mart or whatever, on the square. Remember that? On the square. And they were just chatting, and somebody came in to buy some bullshit groceries, and they said, "Oh, are you going to have the jab?" And then they all said, "Oh, yes, I can't wait. I've got my appointment on Tuesday." Okay, so they was all setting the scene. Yes,
prostitutes have more honor.
Yeah, everybody's getting the jab. And then we had one character, and I don't know this character, so I take it was like a silly fool character, right, of in EastEnders. And she walked in and she says, "No, I'm not going to get it because I've been reading stories about it, and I don't know what's in it. All sorts of weird ingredients are in it." And then they just like mocked her and said, "Oh, yeah, okay, like you've done all your research." And I don't know about you, but I want to help my fellow man. And they completely put her down. She looked all ashamed of herself and walked out. And I was like, oh my God.
Is there a way of getting that piece and recording it and playing it to, you know, come sort of October, November when people are dropping dead? Playing that again, maybe on Facebook. Or
you know what,
maybe that's cruel. I shouldn't say.
No,
that,
I mean, we wouldn't do it for that reason.
Play it over and over and over and over.
So many.
Create about 20 different Facebook names and show it over and over and over and over and over and over, just to, you know, show how we've been fooled.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
the problem with that, and we spoke about this before, even when this stuff rolls out, there'll be a still division between everybody as to the reasons why people are getting ill and why people are leaving.
Shows how well the TV and MSM have been done. You know, what they say. From your channeling said that the only way it will finally dawn on them, right, is amongst those whom are left.
Oh yeah. They were saying that that's kind
how severe this
programming is. It will be the people that kind of move through this. They will have a full understanding of what has actually happened, how we've lost so many on the planet, and how we've created what we've created. And it will, because it will take such a long time, so a lot of people aren't going to see it. So this is why we touched on this with Anne earlier. We can't wait for people to wake up in order to get our lives back. It's too late. You have to just create.
Dead, and their kids will be sterile as well through transmission and shedding and stuff. It's unbelievable.
We've got to release that. We can't. There's nothing we can do about that. But this is why you've got to focus on your life. You've got to like what we're doing, right? You're writing your books. I'm creating my stuff. It's
formulating the books now, and the last of the editing and getting it right, and then it's all of that now.
And doing the things that we know that we're here for, and that create like good feelings for us. Because otherwise, if all we were doing is plugging into the world, I think we'd be in depression. You can't.
Love would find a way.
Well, love would find a way. But we'd feel it, right? We would feel it.
Kiss a kiss.
You're gonna cringe when you watch that back now. Stop it. Right. So I think that's it. I think that's the end of our show now. Just hitting your arm. But that's it. I think I'm tired as well. I'm really tired today. I actually really do. Anything else you want to share?
Well, look, just that my own thinking on it. I was more sort of 3D inclined in the sense of how I was reacting to what will be millions in this country die in the next number of months. It starts in the next sort of 5-6 weeks, and with coughing and whatever. So as Bill Gates did say, that one or this one will get their attention. Well, it will. Hint, hint. It wasn't what MSM was saying, or it isn't going to be. It's reality kicking in. What I would say is that at the same time, what I'm trying to do within myself is, I mean, I'm hurt, I'm upset. I was almost in tears last night with the New South Wales kids. Yeah, I mean, Jesus Christ, I can't even talk too much about it now. Those little kids, But I've had the downloads last night, and the insights that I was given have helped in some way. They've helped me understand things. There will be a need in the future, in the very near future, to have a perspective which is 5D and beyond, 5-dimensional consciousness and beyond. Could well be, way more, double. And we are going to need it. We aren't strong enough. We're not cool enough. We're not intelligent enough or slick enough. We just aren't. 2 billion are going to die around the world. And then, triple, quadruple that, and so on, are not going to be able to reproduce. So, I mean, it really is serious.
We're going to have the ripple effects, aren't we, for a long time.
So what is needed out there is, or will be, you need it now, but you'll get it maybe a bit later, is is you're going to need perspective. You're gonna, you know, and one of those perspectives that I understand is that a lot of these people, or all of these people in one way or another, on another level, on another dimension that is not on this, they don't have on this earth, but their souls were aligned with it long before they came here, is that they were here for a very short time, or whatever that time is, and they were meant to pass. They had agreed with it, and they won't be dying per se. They will be passing on to another realm and consciousness, and you know, some won't be able to accept that, but whatever way they pass or choose to pass, some of their own hand is going to have untold amounts of this as well. Again, they weren't meant to be here, and you know, the soul's journey is one that we don't know enough about, but what we do know is that it's a way better journey than what we've got on this earth, apart from my little Bubba here. I'm
going to come back to that because that's the topic I want to, you know, the downloads I was getting yesterday. There's so many perspectives, and I think it's maybe a little too early to share them now, I think right now, but I think, you know, I'm going to do the show every week, and I'm just tune in. It could even be next week, but I'm just going to tune in to see when some of those perspectives are so useful. I think we're going to do that soon, just to give another, because we're going to need something to tap into to move through this. This is going to be tough, and I'm not saying this, we're not saying this to freak you out, but this is the warrior spirit. This is how I feel. It's, let's not pretend, let's just be really, this is Awaken Lippy, we're being real, to really name it, really name what's happening and not try and pretend, and then prepare ourselves, because it's the only thing we can do is prepare ourselves to move through this, and we're all going to need to connect with each other on this. So this is why I feel really passionate about talking. So let me just share this book while you're here. We're going to end now anyway, but this is the perfect book for this week. I wanted to share with you because it really helped me. My brilliant book of the week. I'll just turn this off. Hold on, sorry, all over the place here. Brilliant book of the week. Okay, so this is the book I read when I was ill and I recovered, and then I read it again last year, and it's Man's Search for Meaning. It's from like a classic book, Viktor E. Frankl. You might have already read it. If you have read it, read it again, because it just gives you, what I love about it is just, it's exactly as we were talking partly today, is around, and he was, I think he's a psychiatrist, or I think a psychiatrist who was in one of the concentration camps, and he just talked about his experience, and he talked so much about the meaning. It was so many people died through that, but the people that didn't, and obviously he was a survivor, it was because he tapped into something. He had to find a meaning. He had to, everything, that dreadful thing he went through. So this book isn't like a triggering, I mean, there are bit, you know, it sort of talks about the concentration camp, but it gives you more of an insight, and it's such a great, it's not that big, look, it's like a very thin book, but it gives you some perspectives. It really gives you a perspective into how to navigate this. I think it's such a good one.
This is the name of the game now.
Yeah.
And more so in the next half a dozen weeks.
Yeah. To find, and this is what I'm going to be sharing more.
Christmas is not going to be good. New Year's Eve is not going to be good.
Sharing more of the higher perspectives with the Arcturians as well, and that's what they are here for. That's, they very much want to share those with us so that we can move through this. But it's finding the meaning, and I think what we're going to have to do is find a meaning through about these soul choices that we are now going to have to witness in difficult ways. But this is okay, and this is what we came
and
here to do.
There's not anyone who doesn't know and care for these people. We've got friends. We don't even necessarily need to see them that often, but the sad thing is that we're looking at pictures of the kids, and you know, it's just the connotations of all of this are abysmal. They're devastating, and
They're devastating.
all those, I just think of all those likes and loves that were sent on Facebook. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm glad you did it. I did it too. And I used to just bow my head when I saw these. I'm just thinking, wondering who is going to look after your kids when you're gone. And that's the reality. And unless we, now there's no point in saying don't take this
No,
this
we're not at
bullshit.
that.
We're
now.
it's too late now, and we've had this confirmed as well, not just once, and the millions as well, not just once either, by the way, and billions on the planet. But you know, that is the one thing now we ask that you really get onto, is just to have that, latch onto that higher perspective, and that will in itself open up to your higher consciousness and your take on it, and your ability to maybe buffer the shock of it and see it in a different way. See it in a different way. It's not the end of the world per se, although it's been altered dramatically. We just don't quite realize it yet, but it has, the wheels are set in motion. See it as just transitions, just soul transitions, and of which, you know, ultimately we're all connected to the same source. How that works out with murdering psychopaths and politicians and teachers and so on, lawyers, family court judges, and how that equates with them, I don't know. But you know, but what I would say is that we need to get on that ark now, that boat now, and that Noah's Ark of consciousness, if you like, and that it will be our way forward. That will save people from committing suicide. That will help the transition, and that transition may well be that you have children to look after, the same as probably we will, at least one from this batch of poor little orphans. We all have to step up. We haven't even begun yet. All right. This is one thing at a time. One thing at a time. Yeah, I know, sure, but you know, this world will need the true warriors, the people who go through all sorts of things that if you add them all up, they're almost incomparable. And there are single parents like that, and other people connected to assholes and abusers. There's a lot of stuff. There are a lot of brave warriors out there, way beyond soldiers, for goodness sake. You know, they're not necessarily any less than them. I'm just saying that we have to now. There is a new dawn, a new era ahead, and we've got to step up, and we've got to have that new consciousness and be ready for what will be our sacred and soul-aligned commitments very soon. Onwards.
Awaken Lippy, episode 4.
All right, guys.
Done. So thank you for joining us. And I didn't see any comments. I don't know if anyone didn't comment, but if you did, I'm sorry, I will check back in later. But if you liked this episode, I'd be very grateful. I never usually say this, but if you can give it a like or a love, just so it helps the video be seen
or a shock
by more people. No. Oh, wow. No, I don't think they're the best ones, are they? The wow emoji ones.
I don't
think they are. Anyway, a like or a love, I would say, are better. Just so that we can, it can be seen by more, because I really want to get this these messages out there. So that'd be great if you could do that. Thank you. Comment below if you have any thoughts later on, or if you're watching the replay. Feel free to share anything. And also, just on another note, if you have any questions or any areas of struggle, pop them in the comments below, because I can pick them up. Because when I do some more channelings, I really liked last week's show, and I had quite a few messages actually saying thank you. They really resonated. It really helped. So I'd like to do that again. So if you've got any questions, areas of struggle, or even things you're observing, pop them in the comments below here on this episode, and then I can come back and go through them, because I'd quite like to address some of those, because the perspectives I've been receiving have been so useful, so useful. So we'll do some more of that.
We're moving into interesting times, no doubt about it. Doubt about it. There was, they never taught us this stuff at school or anywhere, and
we're doing it.
So you know, you're only as strong as your weakness. Batten up your hatches in whatever way you can. Take it serious. Do your earthing. Lemonize your water. Distill it. Just a few basic things that are, you know, the kindergarten stuff. Just do it. Most of you may have already done it already, because you know just how important these things actually are, because you've done 2 minutes of research and you'd see it. It's very important. It's going to carry you. It's going to carry you through, in all sorts of ways.
Yes.
Okie dokie.
Okie dokie. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, caught the tail end. Watch the replay. Yeah, replay will be there straight away as soon as we end this now. And anyone watching as well, if you want to connect with me, because I do more on the inner transformation side of things, so come and join my free Facebook group if you want to check out there. Such a great community going on in there at the moment. So it's the Awake Revolution Soul Team. Just do a search, come and join, answer the 3 questions or I won't let you in. That's all I ask. There's so many good stuff, so much good free content in there, but I just like people to answer those 3 questions. Come and join us in there, and join us next week, next Wednesday, same time, 7 p.m. UK time, for Awake Lippy. So thank you for joining us. Lots of love to all of you. Look after yourselves, and we will see you soon.
Hasta luego.